Hello, I'm Vic Gilgis. Nice to see you again and be speaking to you. And I hope what I'm doing today helps you because I'm going to talk about, well, what is probably the most important thing ever in the universe for all of us is to do with love. And what this talk is about is how love itself raises our level of consciousness, makes us aware because it aligns us with the frequency of how the universe works, which is to do with thriving, which is to do with living, which is to do with well-being. And when we are in love with life, in love with ourselves, in love with others, instead of the opposite of being detesting of everything and upset with everything, upset with ourselves and upset with others, when we're in the state of love, and I don't mean that flippantly, I don't mean that in a silly way, I mean actually being with life's energetic flow, we get its benefits, we get its help. It enables us to do what we can do, and it basically super boosts us, as it were. So it is difficult to say what love is because there are sayings like, well, love is blind. Well, it certainly is not blind. It doesn't overlook faults and frailties because love is simply reality, total reality. It doesn't deal with non-truths. It doesn't deal with seeing past things. It actually sees, as I've said, what reality really is, because it is reality and it wants to be there, it wants to exist, and because of its energy, when we are with it, as it were, all ships rise in the harbour when love is present. So we benefit, everybody else benefits when we are being loving. Now, this, I think, has illustrated itself very well through this recent spell we've had of lockdown and just coming out of lockdown now because of this coronavirus, this COVID disease. And it's shown to me, and I've talked with this to quite a few other people, that many of us just couldn't wait to get out just to be with other people, because that's how we're built. We miss other people. We want to be near people. We want to hug and to be close to people. And being separated from people, being in lockdown, as it were, has really been quite upsetting for us. But to me, it's demonstrated how although at the moment we cannot kind of hug and touch people, just being in the close proximity of people, even though they may be strangers, I felt that to be very satisfying. And because to me that is now illustrating just how life really is, that we all are there to be loving and to love each other, and without that we perish, but with it we flourish. Now, in practical examples, well, there's just one, COVID, but just recently in the news has been, well, a few weeks ago now, but George Floyd, the black American who was killed, and a lot of people naturally protested about this. And the movement Black Lives Matter came about, people taking the kneel because George Floyd was killed by someone kneeling on his neck. And what is being, it's in the air at the moment, as it were, this love of saying, well, we shouldn't do that to people. We should respect people. We should treat people equal. And I think, when you look at that, that is why there's been people being upset with famous statues of former slave owners and traders, and wanting to pull them down, and in fact pulling them down. In other words, trying to get a better state of understanding and of equality of people, and trying to help people who are the underdogs. In fact, certainly looking at the statistics or the information that we're now getting, that the people that are suffering worst from COVID are the people who are poor, the people who have less means of getting help or food and what have you. That type of community does need to be understood more and helped more, and that will also help everybody come out of this crisis in a better way. Now, I'm going now to relate to this by talking about my father, who saw a first-hand example of this when he served in the British Army in India to help manage India and what have you, as they did. This was in the 1920s. And my father was telling me about how some of the officers badly treated the servants, the batmen, the people who acted as valets or servants to the officers. And my dad, when I was old enough to understand, he told me about this and said that these people, so he was talking about the helpers in India, the Indians themselves, were a great people. And that was reflected in the Rudyard Kipling poem, which related to a water carrier, I think they call them bishtis, where the closing line of the Rudyard Kipling poem says, "You're a better man than I am, Gunga Din." And that's what the officer is saying to his manservant. And so thereabout was coming already in those years an appreciation of other people, and trying to help other people and realise their good properties. And well, anyway, I think I've said enough there. Now, the opposite of love, which is, for example, with oneself, and I'll relate this to myself, is not loving oneself. And I remember as in my early teens being fed up with myself for all sorts of reasons, and when I now know these were egoistic reasons of comparing myself against others in terms of my intelligence or my looks or what have you, or what I could do and couldn't do. And my mother used to say to me, you don't like, what was the word? She said, you don't like the look, you've seen your backside and you don't like the look of it. And I thought that was quite funny. and sorry about that, but kind of explaining this means she was saying, you've seen your bad side of your nature and it's upsetting you. And of course, this is the opposite of love, is that when we see the bad side of nature in ourselves, or we see it in other people, in other words, we're judging, then life is, we're totally out of vibration with what life is really about, because we're dealing with energies that are just the opposite of life, of putting things down and being upset because things are low. So you're in certainly a low state. Now, again, going back to my father, before he went in the army, he was an orphan. So he more or less went out of the orphanage into the cadets, the army cadets, and then into the army, and then having served for 5 years in India and what have you, came out of the army and got married to my mother, and because of his kind of early upbringing of being regimented and being very harsh with the orphanage, in effect being deprived of love and a lot of parental guidance, I don't think my father really knew what love was, because he'd never had the chance to experience love. And the nice thing is, and this is true, is that I could see this in my father in my early teens. And on one particular occasion, I remember saying to him that, I loved him. And this was during an argument, and I was basically saying, look, let's stop all this arguing, because I was starting to grow up and wanted to do more around the house in terms of what I wanted to do, and my dad was saying, well, look, this is my house, these are my rules, and there's the highway if you don't like it. Now, I saw through that, and I saw that I was rebelling against him and he was rebelling against me. I had to respect that, and I talked to him in those terms, that I did respect him, but I wanted to do certain things, and could not he respect me in doing that. And for the first time I saw my father really looking at me and listening. And after that, that was the start of an incredible bond between myself and my father, and it was based purely on love. He'd never seen that happen, and was now. So what I'm saying there is that even if you've not been trained or given a knowing of it, when it is given, it will be felt, it will be recognised, even if there's no apprenticeship of it, as it were. And going back even further, I could see the way in which my dad was trying to explain, possibly to help me love myself, because, as I say, I was a bit of a ratty kid. When he did tell me, on one occasion, I said to him, can I have a good night story, Dad? And I'd be about 7 years of age, maybe too old, a bit beyond being given good night stories, but he looked at me quite startled. And it was only because I'd heard that the kids at school, that sometimes their parents told them bedtime stories. And my father kind of was taken aback by this, and he started telling me a story about this little boy who had lived in a nice house and had nice parents and a nice black cat and this, that and t'other, and went to a nice school. And I thought, oh, that kid must be really lucky, and then he said, this child is loved. This little boy is loved. And it dawned on me, not until that moment, and I had to say it to my father. I said, Dad, you're talking about me, aren't you? That's me. That little boy in the story is me. And he said, yes, it is. And that was the start of me, I think, appreciating myself and loving myself, because I started to realise what love is. So the whole point of what I'm saying is, I hope this is coming across, is that love is more than just a term. Love is intelligence. Quite a few years ago now, I read the book by Robert Holden called Loveability. And that explains in great detail the intelligence of love. I would prefer to say it in terms of the universal intelligence of life that flows through us all. That is love, because that is intelligent energy that is flowing through us. That makes the grass grow. That makes everything happen. That is flowing through us, and it is love that is flowing through us. And when we're in harmony with that love, we see life differently. In other words, it raises our awareness of what is good, what is worthwhile, what is helpful, what is virtuous. All the adjectives that you would give to the different forms of love. And these come in many forms. And when your consciousness around love is realised, or is there, instead of the opposite of being in the dumps, And of course, when you're in the dumps, you're in the dumps. But when you realise that you can switch to another level of thought, which is to do with love, then you're raising the energy of your consciousness, or your consciousness is raising your energy. You start to appreciate things and others. You start to respect others. You start to want to help others. And of course, in seeing that others have it no differently to you, that because you know yourself that you can have bad thoughts and bad times and all the rest of it, that other people are just the same. And so instead of getting upset with others, we can respect that they are too going through bad times. And the only way in which we can rise ourselves from that type of gutter is to look upwards and see where the love is, and look to the love and look for the love. And certainly with the examples of that I was given from my parents eventually, and in myself eventually, that love in effect does help and it does heal, because love is intelligent and it raises our level of consciousness. And that's why the title of this little talk today is Appreciating Life Because of Love. And when we are in love with life, we will appreciate it more, because we will see it more. We'll see its existence. We will be aware, because that's where our attention is. That's where our consciousness is. And our consciousness is always raised when we are in a state of love. So thank you for listening. I hope that's helped, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Thank you very much.